Hey, this is the GatorEX podcast, the podcast that happens every 2 weeks. There's a rotating cast with myself remaining the constant, and as you can see, I'm the only one here this week, or at least this 2 weeks or so. And last week, on top of that, there was a recap episode. So, oh no, is the GatorEX podcast dying? Well, definitely, I haven't been able to get my good old guests on, mostly because we're all adults. We all work, we all have our own commitments here and there, and our schedules hardly ever line up. And, especially me, I work 5 to 7 days a week, and, not saying that was like, oh, you guys should feel sorry for me or whatever, but point is, like, our schedules don't exactly line up. And then especially, just kind of this time of year, there's a lot for everybody, and I'm sure you guys are also dealing with a lot. And I know especially people who are still in school, you've got finals and this and that, you got to finish up the year, which of course definitely do that, that's your priority. But come June, that's going to be all cool and fun. You guys will probably be done with whatever you have to do, and of course us here at GatorEX Plays are we're going to be a little more free up, although there definitely is quite a bit that I need to plan out. Now, I'm enjoying what we're doing here so far at GatorEX Plays, and I hope this doesn't come off as like too much of an update video, basically just extended into a podcast, but definitely it's going to be a shorter podcast as usual. So point is, GatorEX Plays is cool, it's fun, and I've mentioned it before, it's a little more of a passion project, and I've mentioned kind of what I want to do with it. When Closer was here in the last podcast, I kind of mentioned how super long-term goals, or at least, big dreams and aspirations are that this channel becomes, big and cool and is able to sustain potentially not only myself, but everybody else who works on it to some degree. And I definitely think that would be neat. Not saying that it's an unrealistic goal, but it's definitely a big dream and is pretty far off from happening. But of course, definitely, I think that'd be neat. One of my favorite channels on YouTube is Couch Hop, and they're going through a lot right now. But when James, Uber Hackster Nova, was part of it, he was, basically running it. And something that he said really stuck to me. He said that he basically is running Couch Hop and kind of putting everything he has into it because he wants to take care of his friends, and he wants to make sure he can do that. Now, obviously, I'm not at the point where I can take care of all my friends, but I would definitely love to. Obviously, my friends have got more stable stuff going on than me, and probably make more than I do. Actually, I don't know. I think I work more overall than all of them. I'm not sure. We need to chat more about that. But point is, definitely, I think that'd be really neat. And I had mentioned it sort of, kind of in passing. These past 2 weeks have definitely been interesting for me. Not necessarily that I'm going through a lot, but there's a lot that I'm going through, I suppose, mentally, in terms of what I want to do creatively. Again, a big thing is with this podcast, and it was kind of like brought to my attention, or kind of like reached a tipping point right before the last podcast, because again, I haven't been able to get things lined up with people. I was with my friends on Saturday. We all saw Detective Pikachu together, and that was more of a fun thing. We weren't necessarily going to review it or anything later. We weren't going to do a podcast or anything later. It was just, see the movie, or get some food, see the movie, chit chat, and just hang out, because we hadn't seen each other for a while. And on top of that, it wasn't even all of us, my whole large friend group. It was a portion of us. And so I guess back to what I was saying is that when I wasn't able to get really, a full podcast, and I don't want to like say I'm super sorry, I kind of committed to this, but I kind of did commit to it, and a lot of it is on me because I'm not putting in enough of the work that I should be in order to properly schedule a lot of things. But I mentioned it in my video that I put up on King of Feral Imps, which I kind of am rebooting or posting more on, and thankfully it's being well received, and all you guys are so supportive. And in fact, I don't even know if like any of you guys watching this come from King of Feral Imps, because that's a different channel kind of completely. I guess some background, some context to it is King of Feral Imps definitely was my first channel, my main channel. It's the one that I still log into every day and has all my subscriptions on it mostly. And on that one, I was mostly posting Yu-Gi-Oh content. Of course, I reached this realization that it's not a Yu-Gi-Oh channel, it's my channel, and I can post whatever I want on it, and I have posted whatever I wanted on it. Some other anime and movie related stuff, which I'm going to be getting back to doing, but That was my original channel. That's got about 3,000 subscribers on it, while GatorEX, the new main channel, is 7,000 subscribers. And I know there's a little crossover between each of those in the viewers, but for the most part, I built up King of Frail Imps by itself, and then kind of separately built up GatorEX. So, I mean, realistically, if you think about it, I got them a fresh 10,000 subscribers. But it's really interesting kind of taking a step back to look at all of these. For the most part, I've got like 3 main channels now. All the other ones I need to kind of clean up and delete and get rid of, and kind of going to stick to those 3. King of Frail Imps, which I'm probably going to be changing the name of, GatorEX, which I'm keeping the name, obviously, and I'm posting mostly Pokemon stuff there, and then GatorEX Plays here. And I've mentioned, what I want to do with GatorEX Plays is I want it to be a little more of a group channel with my friends. Unfortunately, like I said, we've all got our own lives, and GatorEX Plays kind of only benefits me to make any videos on it. And again, I don't get ad revenue from GatorEX Plays because it's a small channel. I get views on it and, again, some fun here and there. But it doesn't benefit them because, they don't get any ad revenue from it. They don't get linked to, like, their social media, which they don't even have any social media. I think they should at least have some Twitters. My friends are... My friends are cool. I'm really thankful for them. And they're really talented. Personally, I would like to push them a little more. And on top of that, I know all you guys are listening right now. But yeah, this is my step of encouragement for you guys to make Twitters or YouTubes or whatever. I mean, definitely I'm here so I can help you guys out. But point is, them coming onto my podcast, that's them wanting to get their voice out there in a way, or wanting to be part of something they're creating, at least as I see it. With all of my friends that appear on here, which we've got a decent cast here on the GatorEX Plays podcast. We've got, obviously, myself. We've got Nerds, Closer, Kay, and Bait. That's, 4 people, not including myself, and they all asked me if they could be on, my podcast. I've mentioned it, but they've all kind of like volunteered themselves to be on it. After I've said, I kind of want to do this, but I want to have it with like real life friends or something like that. But I don't know. It feels weird talking about them all when they're not here, but if you guys have like any feedback or anything you want to say to them, you can always leave it in the comments below. They always love seeing interaction and stuff here on the channel in the comments, and you guys are cool. You guys who listen to this and everything, that's all really cool. But anyway, GatorEX Plays, it would be really neat if that could be something going on. I'm going to be recording a few more Let's Plays just by myself, right? I'd like to be recording some more gameplay videos with them as well. We need to start setting aside like maybe 1 recording day a month to just get out like maybe a podcast or 2, and then some gaming videos. Going forward, that's definitely going to pick up, and especially when I'm able to reevaluate and improve a lot of my setup and everything. I feel a little weird just kind of talking about channel plans, I suppose. This really does remind me of something I used to do again on my original channel, King of Frail Imps. It was a weekly video series that I would do where I would just sit down and talk about things that are going on. Typically, news stuff, some of my feelings. The thing is, though, this was only like 20 minutes. These videos were only 20 minutes long, as opposed to my usual 50 to 60 minute podcast that I do here every 2 weeks. I would do this series called Imp Chat, where I would just talk about whatever, and it would be myself, not anybody else. I had a guest like once, but for the most part, every episode was just me talking. And, I definitely think that that's something I shouldn't be afraid to do. I feel like that's kind of been my roadblock creatively. I've just kind of been afraid to make any sort of new type of content or just anything. And I realize more and more so, and I mean, it's kind of sad that I didn't exactly realize this as much as I did before, but, when it comes to creating stuff, you gotta make what you like. I mean, obviously, you can make stuff that people like, and when you get to the point where you have, like, a solid viewing, and it doesn't even matter, like, the number of subscribers, as soon as you, like, get any sort of subscribers, because, any size channel is valid, obviously. I don't think of myself any different now as I did when I had, like, 100 subscribers, which when I reached the first 100 subscribers, that was just amazing. And I guess that's kind of like a thing of encouragement to any of you guys who happen to be like listening, and not even just that, but like any sort of Twitter followers, any sort of like YouTube following or like online following in any sense. Once you have it, that's kind of, you don't need a certain number to validate yourself. you're valid as long as you exist, obviously, but any following that you have is still a following. To a degree, yeah, you sort of have a little bit of an obligation to post stuff that you think that they're going to enjoy, but you also have an obligation to yourself to make what you want to make, because that's the reason we're all making videos here. I know some people definitely, they have their goals, or they go into YouTube saying, oh, I want this to be my main job, or oh, I want to have 100,000 subscribers and this and that, which obviously setting goals is great, and especially if you can follow through and continue to use that as a way to continue your drive. And I think that's great. You kind of need to remember that, like, the purpose of YouTube originally is to put up videos just for people to see and just for fun. But of course, that's the nature of online posting just anywhere. Again, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, what have you. Which, by the way, I actually do need to continue working on my Instagram and get that going and everything. But I've personally had a good week. Again, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of this week so far. Detective Pikachu came out last week. I did a review of it, did a theory of it. Again, I saw it with my friends. I've seen it 3 times so far. I saw it Thursday night, the night it came out, or like the earliest possible viewing I was able to see, and then I saw it Saturday night with my friends, and that was great, being able to finally talk about it and share it with them. And I'm gonna have to see it again, come June, when, well, not gonna have to see it again, but when the rest of my friends are, available, and when they've kind of finished a lot of things that they're doing right now, I'll have to see it with them, and that'll be fun. That'll be a fun experience. But point is, I definitely really did enjoy the movie, and it's really been quite the journey. I was looking back on my playlist of every Detective Pikachu video I made, and I realized that I'm probably like the one person who made the most videos about it, because I kind of like reacted to or broke down just about every trailer, or every kind of small news tidbit. And I've been following this for about a year now. I put out the first video when the initial set photos came out. When we got some more information from Pokemon Worlds, I put out a video, and then with each new trailer, I just put out more and more. And it was really interesting to see, because now the movie's out. I got my review, I got my theory, and probably gonna do maybe like one more theory or some other retrospective stuff, based on the movie. But I don't know. It's just an interesting feeling, and I guess I could say I'm a little sad to see that the journey's kind of over, at least for Detective Pikachu. Now we kind of move on to Sword and Shield, which is coming out later this year, and so that's going to be a whole other thing entirely. But with Detective Pikachu, this saga basically done. That was a large part of my channel, especially like for this year, specifically for the beginning part of 2019. Basically, my channel was only Detective Pikachu, and Sword and Shield when that was announced. So that was just really neat to see that kind of come to not necessarily an end, but to come to like an end of this chapter, because obviously we're going to be getting Detective Pikachu 2 and potentially some other live action Pokemon movies, which again, that's something I'll discuss at a later date. But having seen the movie and having had some time to just kind of not chill out, but just think about it some more, I really enjoyed it. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds for Pokemon movies, at least, the live action ones. We've got the animated one coming out later this year in Japan, like in July, and then we'll probably get it like November. But, I feel like I sound like a broken record sometimes, just kind of mentioning stuff that happens from video to video, especially, videos that have the same topics. But overall, yeah, it was cool. I'm kind of like, not that I'm done with Detective Pikachu. Right now I'm sitting down and I'm just kind of surrounded by like a lot of the merchandise. I've obviously got my Detective Pikachu plush that I got. That was so great. I've got a lot of the free posters and the free cards that were from some of the events that happened over this weekend, which again is great. And in fact, there's still going to be another poster/card distribution this weekend. So hopefully I'll be able to get that one and kind of complete that little mini collection. But it's just been great to see this thing for Pokemon just kind of in the public knowledge or public awareness of everybody. And hopefully that leads into some great stuff for Sword and Shield. Now, Sword and Shield, I really kind of think we need some more trailers soon. That's an interesting debate about like how much they should show off of the game before it actually comes out. I definitely think that they should be showing off a decent amount, but at the same time there should still be some surprises left. One issue, right, is the game's getting out early, which is a big fear, and it's happened in the past, unfortunately, because Pokemon being one of the biggest franchises in the world, obviously the games are going to end up leaking. But I'll say this, I really did like the era of Sun and Moon where we were basically getting a trailer or a piece of information just about every week or almost every 2 weeks, whether it not be a huge trailer, like it could be like a decent sized trailer. It could be legitimately just a 1-minute trailer introducing one Pokemon, and I think that's fine, like just as long as it kind of keeps it in the, again, public awareness, and as long as we're reminded about this game coming out and being shown that there's stuff to it, I think that's great. But at the same time, there should still be some Pokemon that aren't announced. And, with Sun and Moon, there was a decent amount of Pokemon that weren't shown off or weren't announced until the actual release of the game. I think that, maybe some legendaries could have been held off on. And, I think the really big issue is, again, the game's leaking. And, some people definitely sought out those leaks, or some people it was just kind of thrust into their feeds, so they didn't exactly get to choose whether or not they saw the leaks or this and that, which was really unfortunate. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen. Definitely, when the games are officially released, whenever there's a data mine, that's extremely helpful so that we can understand what's going on with the game. But I really don't like when the data mines happen before the games are officially released. With Sun and Moon, it was really bad because it happened like 10 days before the release. That is a huge window. 4 days is way too much, and unfortunately that happens. The same thing happened with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but fortunately there weren't too many big brand new things to be ruined or spoiled. Again, because it was a remake of a game that we already had. With Sword and Shield, I don't know, I feel like it could happen, unfortunately. Like, I think with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, we made it to like 5 days before the game's release, or actually barely 5 days, because I think it leaked on Saturday and then the game came out Friday, so about 6-7 days. Thankfully that's less than 10 days, but that's still a long time, especially if the same thing happens with Sword and Shield, because Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee didn't have any sort of like demo or anything, or they had demos, but it wasn't a downloadable demo. And I'd assume the same is going to be true for Sword and Shield, where we don't have a downloadable demo, or where it's only like in-person demos in order to ensure confidentiality. I don't know, those are just rambling thoughts. I realize I'm talking a lot about Pokemon, this pretty in-depth about Pokemon, and this podcast is kind of just meant to be like just whatever, I suppose. And we do end up talking about Pokemon, of course, because I think the thing is, again, with my friend, going back to my friends, right, who voluntarily want to be on the podcast, a lot of the times they're the ones who drive the conversation in the direction of Pokemon. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, because I realize, though, for them, of course, maybe the main time they get to talk about Pokemon is when they're chatting with me, or when they're on my podcast and they want to talk about it. For me, I think about Pokemon every day. I talk about Pokemon just about every day in some sort of recorded sense. And on top of that, after I record something, I have to hear my voice again, so I hear it at least twice, up to 3 times. So I not that I get bored of Pokemon, but like, I already talk about it a decent amount. So a lot of the times during podcasts, I'm the one just, I love when it's whatever. I love when the conversation just becomes basically just friends chatting. And again, I guess that goes back to like the type of channel that I would really like this to be in the future eventually, where it's a lot more personality driven. Of course, I got to work on the whole PR thing of like pushing my friends' personalities and making sure they're definitive. Realistically, what I got to do is I got to draw some avatars for everybody so we can all be recognizable, rather than just whatever image we feel like using that week. And that's basically how it works for the video version of the podcast. I definitely see why they want to talk about Pokemon, and it's cool, right? I like talking whatever about my friends, or I like talking about whatever with my friends. That's I guess how I wanted to word it, and that's the reason why I started this podcast. But whatever thoughts you guys happen to have about the podcast, that's always great. Like, your feedback is always so much, and I say this like at the end of just about every video on GatorEX, where I'm mentioning like, hey, check out GatorEX plays and everything. Your guys' support means so much. No, legitimately, it does. And I'm not one to talk about like, oh, low views and whatnot, because like low views will happen, and I've been of the belief, like, okay, my personal philosophy is like, not that it's a weird one, but personally I believe a decent amount of the bad things that happen in your life tend to be your own fault, and not like in a harsh way, but in the sense that like you're responsible for your own life. And if something doesn't happen the way that you think it should, well, what can you do immediately to try and fix that? And with views, right, when say you put out a video and it doesn't do very well in terms of like views, right, there's a lot that you could blame. Obviously you could directly blame YouTube. You could be like, oh, YouTube isn't publishing my video to the sub feed. You could blame the algorithm for not recommending it. You could, okay, unfortunately I've seen some people blame their subscribers, and that's like a really nasty thing to do. And yeah, I've seen someone say something along the lines of like, oh, don't people understand how important this video is, or don't people understand how cool this video is? You know, that person ended up apologizing later and eventually, but still, that's like, it's kind of a nasty way of looking at it. Like, the last thing you can look at look at yourself. You know, maybe you just made a bad video that day. And again, with the whole broken record thing, I realized I said kind of something along the same lines in my Splatoon video, but basically that's it, right? If I put out a video that doesn't do super well, and you know, I was really proud of it. I mean, I can think of examples right now. The Pokemon food video where I talked about the macaroni. I really wanted that to take off. I wanted it to be cool and fun. It didn't, unfortunately, and that's fine. Just move on, and you can always post another video the next day. But, you know, stepping back and looking at it, I realized, you know, maybe I didn't make that video the best it could have been. I could have spent more time working on it. I could have made it more, I guess, marketable here and there, you know, this and that. But I guess what I was saying is, yeah, you know, the channel honestly has not been doing very well lately, but I mean, I'm fine with that. Obviously, I've seen some people when like, okay, unfortunately that's the problem, right, with YouTube, right? It presents itself as all numbers. So when you see numbers all the time, unfortunately, some people will take that to mean only numbers. But you know, me personally, I always need to remember and try to remind myself as best I can that every view is an individual person who takes their time out of their day to stop and watch something that I created. And that's amazing. And I'm extremely grateful for that. I don't take any of these views for granted, obviously. And I try not to. Sometimes, you know, I get some nasty thoughts that, you know, I don't like go and cry about that or rant about it or ramble about it here and there, but it's not discouraging because I've kind of moved. Okay, I've got a lot of growing to do when it comes to creativity, and again, you know, this is something that's happened this past 2 weeks with over on King of Olymps and how and where I want to go in the future with GatorEX plays and just in general. But I'm pretty glad that in a way I feel like I've matured or grown up in the sense of kind of coming to understand that. You know, I'll say this, right? When you reach about 300 subscribers on YouTube, right, you get this little notification, and it says something along the lines of, "Congratulations, you've reached 300 subscribers." That's enough to fill up a large theater, or something. That's enough to fill up a theater, something along those lines. You know, I feel like they send that to you to kind of help put things into perspective. Obviously, you can look at my channel, right, and you can say 7,000 subscribers. Oh, you know, he's like a smaller YouTuber comparatively, right, compared to other types of YouTubers, and especially other Poketubers, right, even directly. But 7,000 people, that is a lot of people. And again, not every one of them watches my videos. You know, that's just the way things are. But still, the fact that I created something and I put it out on the internet and it made enough of an impression to 7,000 different people for them to stop and say, you know, I'd like to see more of what this guy makes. Like, that's extremely, not necessarily humbling, but that's extremely, like, when you look at it that way, it's amazing, you know? And I mean, obviously people will say, oh, you know, I appreciate you guys so much, or your subscriptions, your comments, your likes mean so much. And you know, I say that too. So I'm actually, you know, really curious how, you know, behind the scenes, how many people will stop and think about that sometimes, because, you know, I think about that every time I guess I get discouraged in any way, any small way. I try to stop and think about that and try to remember that, because I don't know, it's just cool. You know, with this podcast, it being only myself, a good amount of it has just kind of been about channel stuff, just random stuff I'd like to get off my mind, or just things I've been thinking about for a while. You know, I guess that's fine, but going into the rest of this year, things are looking really cool. I've got a lot going on, or at least a lot planned, and things are definitely looking up. For one thing, some of you may have noticed, I'm posting stories on Amino, and full disclosure, Amino did contact me and asked me to start making some stories for their platform, and I've kind of been enjoying it because it's really interesting. It's like a little challenge because you got to make this video and make it only like a minute 30 seconds long at most. But at the same time, you got to kind of be consistent in a way. Thankfully, it hasn't taken away too much of like posting on my actual channels. It's like an interesting other form of creation. And again, full disclosure, they are compensating me. That's not anything I need to say. They're not like promoting, or I'm not getting paid to promote their platform, which, used to be a thing that Amino would do. They've like contracted a lot of YouTubers, right, to create stuff for their platform, to create these stories, because that's something that they want to launch and want to get going. And I won't lie, that's very nice, and it's a great opportunity. Thankfully, that's going to help me going forward with building the channel and everything, building the brand, I guess, because, I guess when you get to the point of like maybe 10,000 subscribers, that's typically how I see it. When you reach like 10,000 subscribers, that's kind of when you can start taking things a little more seriously, start hustling a little more to try and, I guess, building your channel as a business or building your online personality as a business. And, that's typically when I think you should maybe open up a Patreon. For one reason, that's why I haven't opened up a Patreon. I've been thinking of ideas, and what's funny is, this is something that I mentioned briefly in like an imp chat video, like I said, way back when on the King of Feral Imps channel, and how, I had thought about opening a Patreon, and I'm glad I never opened one up, because then it kind of would have just turned into a thing of like barely fulfilling like promises or barely fulfilling reward tiers, and then just dropping down to like maybe like 2 people supporting a month, and just because they forgot that they were supporting me. But eventually that might be something to do. For one thing, full disclosure, I suppose, yes, I do make money from my channels, at least, my two channels with more than 1,000 subs, the 2 big main ones, because they actually meet the requirements for monetization. Yes, I do make money from that through the ads. I treat it more as like pocket change. Oftentimes, like, I don't tend to like spend it extravagantly, because typically, you only get paid $100, because in case you didn't know, that's how Google AdSense works, right? It builds up enough to the point where it reaches $100, and then when it reaches $100, you'll get paid out on the 21st of the month, because they don't want to be sending out a bunch of checks for like $3 or this and that. But when you're an adult with a job, $100 is it's still a good amount. I mean, $100 is about a day's wage at work, and while like that's still a full day of that's still a full day's worth of pay. That goes very quickly when you drive, and when you pay for insurance, and when you pay for basically everything else. I was saying something about money. I need to try to invest that more so back into the channel. With Amino, definitely what I get from that is going straight back into the channel, because that's set up a little differently, so it's going to be a little easier for me to do that. Mostly the main thing is that just a computer. I just need a new computer fast. Well, not fast, but first and fast, because that's going to allow me to make videos a little better. That's going to allow me to actually stream again, because I mean, streaming is fun and I really enjoy it. For one thing, streaming, we can get back to the way where it is, where it's like streaming is just me sitting down talking basically for an hour, and maybe not just talking, like playing games too, streaming games. And then keeping the podcast for like buddies, buddies, like 2 guys talking and whatnot, or 3 guys talking, or 4 guys. We got to get those groups larger. Overall, things are looking great. And I mean, I feel a little bad that I just kind of spent like 30 minutes talking about my channel and whatnot, and the future, but that's basically what I've been thinking about recently. It's, again, there's been a lot that's been just weighing on my mind that was really heavy, and thankfully I was able to deal with some of it and kind of get some of it off my chest and just resolve some of it, and put some solid plans into action to at least just make things better. But anyway, it's late because, again, I didn't schedule things very well. But anyway, again, if there's anything you'd like to let me know, you can leave it in a comment below. You guys are subscribed to everything. You're in the Discord servers. That's great. And again, it means a lot that y'all still listen to this. And next episode, it should either be me and Closer or me and Nerds, depending on how I can set up the schedule. And then we'll get that big group of buddies starting in June. In June, things are gonna pick up a lot more because we'll see what we can do with the GatorEX Plays channel as it continues to go and grow. Hopefully, I'll be recording some gameplay stuff this weekend that I can start putting up on the channel again, because the individual gameplay stuff is also really neat. And then when we can get to like the buddy gameplay, that'll be all cool. But I mean, I hate to hold you here as I continue talking updates and everything. So let me just go ahead and be on my way. I suppose a short 30-minute podcast, but if you guys enjoyed it, leave a comment below. You have any questions, go ahead and leave those as well. Again, if you have any questions for any of the other buddies here on the podcast, Nerds, Closer, K, Bait, leave those in the comments below. And go ahead and tell me who's your favorite out of all the GatorEX boys. You won't make anyone jealous. Just go ahead and say who your favorites are based on what you've heard from podcasting gameplays and stuff. But anyway, this has been the GatorEX podcast. There will be another one 2 weeks from now, and it will be much bigger, better. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening to some of my sincere thoughts and everything. And so anyway, yeah, this has been GatorEX. See you guys. How do I end the podcast? I think normally I just ask someone else to end it for me.